Hey everybody, welcome back for another movie review. Movie review month. It's February 2nd, and we got two. We're gonna do two in one today, but not in one video, but back to back videos. And uh February, Black History Month and Valentine's Day. Usually, as a matter of fact, it's been a lot of over the many years, a lot of not good black movies, but also black romantic movies. Uh, so a nice little like combos that I can do in one for this theme month. Today, I'll start off with a classic. Guess who's coming to dinner? It starts. The late great Sidney Poitier, uh, Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn. Sidney Poitier plays Dr. John Wade Prentice. Spencer Tracy as Matt Drayton. Katharine Hepburn uh, as Christina Drayton. Catherine Hogton as Joanna Joey Drayton. Cecil Calloway as Monsignor Mike Ryan. Faye Richards as Mrs. Mary Prentice. And Roy E. Glenn Sr. as Mr. John Prentice Sr. Oh, and Isabel Sanford as Matilda Tilly Binks. You might recognize her as Mrs. Jefferson. So this came out December 12th, 1967, directed by Stanley Kramer. And this movie really inspired uh movies like one that just recently came out on Netflix, You People, starring Eddie Murphy, Lord, crap, I'm blanking on her doggone name. I'm about to say Lori Harvey, that's not it. Lauren London and Jonah Hill and Nia Long, as well as uh, uh, Julie Louise Dreyfus, and got the guy from X Files. What's his doggone name? I'm blanking on it. David Duchovny. And I was I might still look at it, but I watched Dan Merle's review on it, and as he put it, and I was afraid of this because I like all these actors that's involved in this. Everybody loves these actors involved in this. Every actor involved in this has done some phenomenal work in the past. A lot of them are very funny, but according to him, now of course I can make my own assessment by actually watching it, but 99% of the time, me and Dan Merle usually see eye to eye on a lot of stuff in the past from what he looked at, and in large part that I've seen the same stuff, and I tend to share the same sentiment. The only thing I ever remember off the top of my head I ever disagree with him on was the Cruella movie, which I thoroughly enjoyed. He did not, which was kind of surprising. It was like, I guess, first time for everything that like I actually disagree with his assessment on. But you know, he pointed out how like this premise, yes, has been used before, i.e., guess who's coming to dinner. But also you get things like Meet the Parents with like Ben Stiller and uh, uh, crap, I'm blanking on his name now. Taxi Driver. Shoot. Um, uh, Robert De Niro. Uh, and which have been done, as he put it, done better because it feels like Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill, like, it's not allowed to be actually funny, you know, at least used to their full capabilities. And Jonah Hill apparently just doing his whole nebbish shtick that he usually does in most of his films, and like, and fall to the same trope they all do, which is like, you know, the new boyfriend, you know, isn't telling like the completely truth. I mean, it could be, it's not like it's, you know, not, you know, like you can't do it, but there's no nuance to it because we've seen it 1,000 times, and it's like, you know, just tell the truth. Why you gotta hide crap? You know, because he's gonna make things worse. But you know, it keeps doubling down. It just some might, you know, different opinions on it, but it's like that kind of made me turn off or something like that. Like, I don't know. Maybe I gotta change an opinion if I actually watch it, but I don't know. But Guess Who's Coming to Dinner really kind of set the precedent on movies like this, where, and it's kind of, you know, apt at this point in this day and age with people, not just, you know, people of different races coming together, but it can also speak to those with different ideologies or political beliefs, and how that might shake things up with somebody's own perception of things. So, on the way back from their a vacation from Hawaii, Joanna and John, and this is what gets me. I mean, it was a different time then in the 60s, but even still, I can't even fathom. Because it's the same problem I had with like the Father of the Bride movie that I've reviewed last year for, you know, Father's Day month. Which, by the way, check out my YouTube channel, the Father of the Bride review. And don't forget, by the way, like this video, share this with your friends. Let me know if you're watching this on YouTube or Odyssey. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. But if you've seen Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, but if you haven't, definitely check it out because it's actually a very well done film. It's kind of like a semi self-contained type of film, which usually I like pretty much. That's why I enjoy, like, you know, things like Glass Onion, where it's like you're in this one space and you're just focused on it. You know, they only known each other. They met up in Hawaii because they went there, you know, for different reasons. But they met at this kind of conference. They're like, you know, head over heels in love for these 10 days they've been there. And it, like I said, it might be a different time, but it's like way worse than even with the Father of the Bride situation, where the daughter only knew this dude in, you know, met up with this dude in Rome, and like, you know, only spent 3 months together and already want to like get married. It's so dumb. I cannot stand the movies like this where you got like, God, it's the only thing worse than these kind of things is like those old Disney short films like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. It's the only thing I can think of that's worse than this. It's like just so quick. It, like Elsa said in Frozen, you barely know this guy. It's like, you know, how you know everything about this person within a short time. It's just nonsensical. You know, my ex knew within like at least 6 months, knew about as much about me as like my relatives, which is pretty impressive because I guess she was just obviously paying attention. But she knew all of my quirks, habits, the way I think. Sometimes, you know, pretty much down to the point where she knew when I'm supposed to get home after college, after classes in college, like down to the minute almost. You know what I mean? 6 months, but but I raised to the point in my review of Follow the Bride. You can check that out. I expressed that there too. Is that me personally, as a heterosexual cisgender male, I think bare minimum, or at least somewhere between 2 to 3, maybe 4. You might be pushing it, but 2 years bare minimum is long enough for a guy to be 100% sure whether or not he actually wants to marry the girl he's with, because that's long enough to meet each other's friends and family. That's long enough to spend all these holidays and birthdays together. That's long enough for y'all have some arguments, and like see if y'all can work through that, because relationships takes work, especially heighten that with marriage. You constantly have to work at it, that kind of thing. And it's like, it doesn't bear well. You don't need to be a marriage therapist to tell that it doesn't bear well if you're going into a relationship like so serious as marriage after less than a year getting to know each other, and definitely not 3 months, or definitely not 10 days. So weird. I get it, it's a movie, it's heightens things, the stakes and stuff like that, but it's so stupid. You can still get the same result if you put in like at least a year and some change. It doesn't have to be a full 2 years, but I guess it has to be at least approaching over a year to where it makes semi sense. But anyway, these two, get to San Francisco from Hawaii. It was, by the way, I really want to go to Hawaii one of these days. Is my bucket list place to go, right behind Japan. But yeah, that lovey-dovey music's playing. Oh, it's like, I guess they fill in your head with like the I won't say false sense of security or anything like that, but you're wrapped up in their romance. You're focused on them, kudos to the cinematography. Like the camera is just focused on them. It's not like everybody else is kind of like blurred out or blocked out, whatever like that, but it's focused on them as they're coming through like the airport gates, and you follow along when they get their luggage from baggage claim and out to get to the cab. It's just like and that music is swirling, it's all sweet and everything like that. You're in the whirlwind of their love, and I guess it's kind of like false sense of security in a way, because like you don't think, because you're looking at this now, you don't think this kind of romance. This is like standard stuff. Hell, it was kind of standard stuff, even in like the late 90s into like the 2000s. It is a thing. It's always been a thing. But back then, a white person hooking up with a person of color was very taboo. If you can believe it, it was a very taboo thing, especially when it comes to like a black person hooking up with a white person. Mixing race wasn't like seen as quote unquote right, but you're not thinking of that going in. Heck, you're not even thinking of that kind of stuff when you're watching it as a whole, because you can't fathom that ever being an issue. But they go to Joanna's parents' house, and the first person you meet is, excuse me, the first person you meet at her house is the housekeeper Tilly, played by Mrs. Jefferson. I was gonna call her Mrs. Jefferson. Uh, uh, and she, a black woman, is just so stunned by seeing Joanna, because like, you know, Joanna and her family, you know, they treat Tilly like part of the family. They, you know, they don't treat her wrong. You know, she's a friend of family. She's great. You know, the relationship is, you know, awesome between them. And she looked at Tilly like a almost like a second mother. And Tilly, you know, helped raise Joanna. Looked at her like, you know, like a daughter. It's like she's extremely overprotective, but she's seeing this black man, and it calls into question how, because as John would point out in the third act of the film, and like, there's an amazing dialogue between everybody involved, but I think my favorite, actually, it's three favorites of mine. One with Joanna's mom talking with one of her former museum curator lady friend, former friend. Another with John speaking with his father. I think that's my top favorite. And then with Joanna's father speaking with everybody at the tail end of the film. Really the best dialogues, you know, in this movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. It is like acting 101. So she obviously, she, like John's father, of a former generation, even from John, like a generation separated from him. Well, not separated, but you know, he's the new John's the new generation, and is right at the, you know, it's like late 60s getting to the 70s, where, you know, there is a slow but surely turning point insofar as, like, you know, how people view like just hanging out with, you know, associating or intermingling or even getting in relationships with people of different races. And it's just cool. And, you know, the way of thinking like anything wrong with it, it just dying away. But, you know, Tilly is just like got that mindset of how she grew up is wrong. Where like John and Joanna grew up, it's like, no, we want to cut that off. And it's always the thing with each generation. We want to break away from the previous generations, you know, their hard cemented rules and how things should be, and try to take it to a next level. And, you know, like, you know, there's a moment with Tilly getting John's face about it, because like, you know, her prejudice, I can't say the word prejudices, and is you get this kind of unique spin, because it's not like it's all about the white people, it's black people too. They got their own prejudices too. And it's just like that slave mentality that they are, you know, was just kind of driven into them from like their own hardships growing up. So now they're, you know, have to be forced to break away from that somewhat. But anyway, eventually Joanna's mom shows up, and of course John's in like Joanna's father's study to make a call to his parents. And in the meantime, Joanna is just like, you know, expressing, because they beating around the bush for a hot minute until they forced her to see, because they're too timid to actually just come out and say like, I'm dating a black man, or I'm dating a white girl, that kind of thing. But they want to get like the superficial, well, not super, the meat and potatoes of the person before they get to the surface level stuff. And you know, she's telling the mom about how he was a great guy, like I knew I love him. And here's the thing, the one con I probably have about this film is probably some of Joanna's level of thinking or dialogue. Most because maybe it's not practical, or she's just in that swooning honeymoon phase. I don't know. It's just like her like oblivious optimism. It's not like it's oblivious, he knows, but it's just like, I think he's great, and I think oh mother, is this is it wrong? It's been wonderful. It's like, yeah, it's like it's a good thing she doesn't, you know, because she was raised that way. You know, her family is very liberal. So her she's grew to just see the person, not, you know, oh, you know, whatever. I just kind of wish, you know, because her father makes a point about like her and her mother that, you know, they, you know, they're caught up in a honeymoon thing, and not seeing the practicality. I guess that's the kind of, it's not a detriment to a woman, but it's definitely not beneficial. It's like their emotions gets, you know, overtakes them from time to time, and they get swept up, and not, you know, take a moment to see the practicality first before they, you know, get into, you know, all the lovey-dovey stuff. But you know, some aspects, the dads involved kind of take it too far in the other direction. But you know, Joanna brings up about a tragedy in John's past where he used to be married to another woman. They had like a son, but they died in like, I think it was like a train accident or something like that. So there's like a rough past, and this is John finding love again after whoever how many years it's been between that tragic circumstances and right now. So uh John starts walking out, and of course the mom is just stunned. It's like, you know, just you know, not only there's strangers in her house, it's like a black man. And so now, you know, because the shock, you know, it's not like, you know, she had to, you know, sit down for a second. And I'm pretty sure it was having a lot with parents. Heck, you know, I'm pretty sure during like the 80s and 90s, you know, there's always that first initial shock of like, oh my god, you know, it's like my because I've seen this in like TV shows during like the 80s and 90s somewhat, where, you know, one of the characters brings home a person who's white or a person who's black, and it's like it it there's a moment of shocking, but it's just like but they get around that. It's usually like in TV shows like that where it's the white person has to get over that, or it's just like maybe like the old heads in the families have to get over that hump more so than anybody around them that's a little younger and more hip to what's, you know, acceptable in the norms of society at that point. Because like, you know, like I said, it's not something that you think about all that much. I mean, like, you know, there's like, you know, white women that I've been attracted to, like, you know, before, never been like an issue. My ex was, well, he was part black, part German, part Filipino, but you know, because like her father was half black, half German. So I imagine his parents, you know, when they got together, there was some kind of like initial shock between like the two parents at that time. So you got in this day and age, you got you still, I don't know if you have to even bring it up anymore. Like, oh, hey, just so you know, she's white or whatever. Like, I'm bringing home my girlfriend. By the way, she's white or whatever like that. I don't think you need to, but it's some initial. I mean, you guys gotta let me know if you're watching this on YouTube or Odyssey. Links are in the description if you follow me on either platform. But let me know if you dated a person outside your race. Did you have to initially bring up, hey, before I bring them home, I gotta let you know she's a white person. This person's white, or this person's black, or this person's Asian, or whatever. Did you have to like instinctively let them know, or did you like just let it be and just brought him home because it shouldn't matter? So like I'm bringing home my new girlfriend, and like just because you're you're white and the girlfriend is Hispanic, do you just like like it's not a big deal. I'm bringing home a girlfriend. She's just a girlfriend. She's not like my Mexican girlfriend, because that'd be freaking weird. But do you have to do all that? Because I don't know. I don't know, because like of course you bring it up, maybe I don't know, because I like to say no, you don't have to freaking bring it up. Of course you don't have to bring it up, it doesn't freaking matter. But well, me knowing me, I like to just leave it a surprise, because just to mess with people, because I'm just that kind of a troll, just to watch their face. But I don't know, does it really matter? Do you have to do that, or is it like a knee-jerk reaction you have to do that? Because obviously you wouldn't care, but it's just like a knee-jerk reaction that you have to let them know, hey, I bring home a white girl or something like that. But anyway, later, because after actually having like a healthy discussion, but later the father comes home and he's saying hi to everybody, and like he's like shaking hands with John. It's like, oh, like you feel like there's a doctor in the house, like like thinking something wrong. And it's like, oh no, nothing's wrong, Daddy. Oh, everything is wonderful. And I kind of like this moment because it kind of made me laugh, because it takes him a second to understand like what this, because everybody's just like kind of like nervous and quiet and everything like that. He was like, well, what the heck is going on here? So like he's going to the other room because he's expected to change, because he's supposed to meet up with this Monsignor, a friend of his, for golf. And as soon as he walks in the living room, he stops, because then the light bulb clicks on. And he starts walking back, like, wait a minute. Because it's almost like a cartoon in a way. Like, this is probably the biggest laugh I got out of this, because I definitely see this in kind of like in cartoons, where it's like it doesn't dawn on you until like, hold up, and then he's just walking back. Wait a minute, rewind. So they explained to him that this is John, he's Joanna's new boyfriend. They plan on getting married very quickly, and they break it down to them that he has to leave for New York for a thing, and then for the next few months after that, he has to go off to Switzerland for this because he's a doctor. He got this like World Health Organization thing, and Joanna's gonna be coming along with him, but they plan on getting married before they go on that trip, and they desperately want, of course they're gonna do it regardless, but they really was hoping for the family's support. And of course they don't hate this man because of his race. Like I said, they're very left-leaning. Even the dad fought for civil liberties for the different races and everything like that. He's like head of this newspaper. He's a head newspaper editor, so he's doing very well for himself. But his primary concern isn't the fact that his daughter is dating a black man. His concern is like, because of that time, the ridicule and possibly dangerous aggressiveness come from other people in different parts of the US that don't see their relationship as right, and they would lash out and attack. Because especially around that time during the South, when they see something like that, they just without mincing words, they kill people of color when they hooking up with like a white person. And that was that at that time. So that was the father's concern of something that happened, because not only loves his daughter, but he respects John and thinks he's a good person, especially after this is what any father would do. He checks the background of this guy to make sure he is who he is and not some kind of like scam artist or anything like that. But he's very prestigious and intelligent and well-off man who did very fine in school and worked very hard to get what he has. But that was the father's growing concern, that something might happen to both of them when they're out and about in the US. He's not worried about any other country. They have their own little issues too, but not as harsh as it was for the US. So he's already had a good, or at least John's father, you see later, and Joanna's father is probably the only two that has to get over this hurdle, at least because they thinking very practically of what was the issues of that time. So everybody's having like a dialogue, I guess, dialogue with each other, and it's like something you could play this in like any classroom, because especially when you're like either in film studies or Black history kind of stuff, you play this kind of thing and you have like very deep discussions about this, because like, because of course, like, you wouldn't care. Even when I was a kid, like when I first saw this, I didn't care. She's a white girl, she's a black man, so what? But it was a serious topic of that time, and I imagine a lot of college kids, even back then, if they watched this or went to the movies and watched this, they probably had like very deep discussions, back then when this movie came out. And like, if I brought over a person of a different race, like how my family react kind of situation. And I imagine a lot of parents would have those kind of dialogues that the parents of these two people are bringing up. But it's also challenging Joanna's parents' beliefs, because Monsignor bring it up later that, because it's kind of like, poking fun at Joanna's dad, that, with all your like, fight against, racial discrimination, fighting for the left and the equal rights and everything like that, when it comes to your doorstep, now you have that. Now you're challenged. You putting your beliefs to the test now, and like practicing what you're preaching. And now you can't hack it. Honestly, you can't hack it, but now you're like question everything that you think. And it's kind of funny, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, he doesn't have to even bring race into this. You can bring political beliefs into situations like this. You know, if like a person who's liberal has like a son who's liberal, but he brings home uh like the son brings home a girlfriend who's was raised Republican, and the father's always been preaching about like coming together and have healthy debates and everything like that and not attack each other. Now he's pressed with having the daughter and her parents coming over for dinner, and like, okay, now this, now you putting your beliefs to a test. Can you have honest to goodness relationship and dinner and everything like that with people who don't believe the same political stuff that you do? Can you rise up and get along with these people? Or not just get along, but just not end in like a complete like shambles. So there's only a few instances where you are not in the home of Joanna's parents, where Joanna and John go meet Joanna's friends at this bar, and of course her friends are fully supportive. They're kind of inconsequential, but it's just nice to see that Joanna has like people outside her family that they can talk to. Oh, there's another funny moment here. I forgot who this person was to the family. Maybe it was related to Tilly. I can't remember. This thin black woman, Dorothy, played by Barbara Randolph, and she leaves out with this delivery boy, and of course it was the 60s, so God, it's like, I don't know, it's just like the goofy dance they had at the time, but they doing like and it's like, God, y'all don't have no right to make fun of like any other generation's dance, but y'all doing this. It's so goofy looking. But she looked like somebody out of one of the old James Bond films. I don't know. It's just because this era is like, dang, it's like I'm stepping inside my grandparents' living room or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just like certain styles is just like very old. But the times that they actually stepped out, Joanna's parents went out to like this malt shop to have some ice cream, and of course he just needed to get out of the house for a second just to, because they're not giving these parents enough time to think about things. They rushing through everything, and they're right. I mean, they need more than a day to process everything. But of course, like I said, right now, this day and age, you don't really need a day to process anything. It's what it is. Like I said, if I watched the Netflix movie You People, like I said, depending on like how the writing is, of course they play to the whole situation about like people getting over it. Because I doubt like how many black families would give a crap that their child is dating a white person. At this day and it's probably highly unlikely they would give a crap. And I doubt like that many white people this day and age, like aside from situations, of course, like tensions are high with like certain stuff politically in the US at this point, but you know, I'd be hard pressed to find any, you know, white families that really give a crap that their kid is dating somebody of a different race. Because like I said, you know, I was born in 1988, you know, raised in like a world where it's like, okay, you know, it's sometimes the stuff that I watch, like movies or TV shows, is played as a joke, but ultimately we didn't really give a crap. I think it was probably like most of our grandparents' generation. It was more of a shock than anything. But you know, when our parents grew up, and then well, we grew up, and then the newer generation, it's like all that is just like okay, this is like, you know, who gives a crap. But eventually, Joanna and John pick up John's parents because she, you know, she inadvertently invited him because, like, you know, she just wanted to like get all out in the open, which is probably like kind of wise because like John just stayed trying to beat around the bush because, you know, this is not lost on him like the problems they might end up be facing, but uh things are like are starting to you know, I won't say come to the head, but it's I like the uh dialogue between the two moms. uh uh I kind of wish we got a little bit more dialogue privately between the two dads. uh but little we did get, it was still fine. Is more so their, like, you know, their generation way of thinking, and even like you know, John's dad, you know, saying to Joanna's dad, like, you know, like you know, like are you some kind of nut, are you crazy, like, you know, this whole thing is kind of crazy. But uh but when John speaks with his father, not only is a great, you know, it's like great dialogue, but it's always stuck with me when I watched this as a little kid. Because I remember watching the first time I watched this, I was in my grandparents' den, and I think I was watching it was with my grandfather. But I think this is the first time I actually seen Sidney Poitier in anything. Uh, but this always stuck with me how, like, when the father is getting his everything off his chest, and you know, and he points out like, you know, yeah, I can see you made a lot for yourself, but like it's just like a thing with parents because they can't help themselves. A lot of them, I won't say everyone, but a lot of them can't help themselves to bring up every time they have like a disagreement with their kid. It's like, I, because he was like a retired postman, and it's like I carry that bag through, you know, rain and snow and all the other stuff, every day just to get you through all those schools. And your mom couldn't have like all the fancy, stuff or go anywhere, and she couldn't even get like a lousy nice coat and all this other stuff. And I like Sidney Poitier's dialogue in this because it's like something like, every parent has to understand is that, you know your kid does not owe you anything. If you carry that bag for 1,000,000 miles, you did what you were supposed to do. Just like I would have to do what I gotta do for my own kid. Because any therapist this day and age will tell you, it's like, you do not own your kid. Okay, yeah, you're responsible for them. You make sure they're physically healthy, mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, and prepared for the world when they get of age and move on. But certainly they got to follow your rules and things like that. But you kind of like autism therapy a lot, and one of the guys pointed out the fact that you got to adjust certain things as the kid grows older. You can't treat them like they're 5 when they're 23. You understand? And you gotta grow with them. You gotta adjust things with them. You not necessarily like hold a hand all the way, but be there for them when they need you. But you can't sit there and control everything that they do. And the fact that parents treat like oh, just because you brought them in this world, you get to do whatever you want with them. And that's not how it freaking works. And I like that dialogue. And it's like you doesn't mean like I don't love you, Dad. But like, and it's like like, but I gotta do things my way. And it's like he points out like your way of thinking. It's like that's the problem with your generation. It's like you only see yourself as a black man, while I just see myself as a man. And it's like he's pointing out it's be good for the rest of us if y'all generations finally in the ground so we can get the weights off our backs. And it's so poignant, and I really like that dialogue. That is so good. This is like shows like Sidney Poitier's acting skills, because he like tore it up with that scene. But I like the fact that he softens afterwards. I'm surprised, as I want to say close knit, but very in close spaces, where it's like you're in the guy's study, but the living room is just right outside the door. It's like how nobody not hearing y'all shouting. Everybody's shouting in different parts of the room. It doesn't travel. But getting towards the end, after lengthy talks, like Joanne's father had lengthy talks with everybody, the Monsignor, his wife, John's parents, John himself. He finally makes a conclusion that and I like this scene. This is another thing that made me laugh, where he kind of brings it all to the head and on the table that what John who bring up to Joanna's dad earlier is like, I don't want to ruin the relationship you have with your daughter, so if you don't approve, then I won't do it. But I really want your approval, but I won't disrespect you like that either. Because it's kind of like old-fashioned that way, I guess. And it shocks Joanna because she didn't know that he did that. And I like this dialogue. It makes me laugh. It makes me laugh every time. Where her father is like, Joey, this is probably the last time I'm ever going to get to say this to you, but shut up. Because you gotta let men of the household be men of the household. Their word is the final word usually, and it's like the wife is the one that's like kind of like the vice president to the president. They go back and forth, hear each other's opinion, but the last word is the head of the household's called. So you gotta he lays his foot down, kind of thing. He can be wrong too, but it's like, yeah, the dad lays down the law. But he points out that what John's mother pointed out to him, that I don't know what's wrong with men when they get a certain age, they forget what love and passion feels like. And he points out to everybody, it's like, oh, you're wrong about that. The way I feel about my wife is so seared into my memory. Even if I live to be 100, that part of me will be the one thing that I will never forget. The way I feel about her. So like, he ultimately gives his approval, but you gotta watch the entire film because like the dialogue in it is so good. Oh, I almost forgot about like Joanna's mom, the way she talks with that this woman St. George. What was it? Hillary St. George is who was running Joanna's mom's art gallery, who obviously had some bit of prejudice. It wasn't outwardly with it, but you can tell. And the way she sends her off, it's like, when you get to the office, I want you to write like a $5,000 check, and it's like, and gather everything in your office, and when I show up there later, I really don't expect you to be there. It's not that like I don't like you, I don't, but it's just like we're not compatible with each other or something like that. You should hear the dialogue because it's very slick, because it's like, because you can tell it shows like the progressiveness of this family, which is like they won't tolerate that kind of bigoted mess, whether subtly or outwardly. They will not tolerate that in their presence. So she sends that woman off. It was so good. But this movie is definitely like a great movie to watch, especially you easily watch this with your kids. It's a good learning kind of movie. I rarely get review movies like this where you can actually learn something from, like a very teachable kind of thing after you watch it. Other than the only other movie I could think of that kind of rise to this kind of level is maybe like Black Panther, the movie I reviewed last February, which you can also check out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. But yeah, this I enjoy this film. It's very, very good. Highly recommend you guys check it out. Definitely need to be put out in a lot of classrooms when you're talking about filmography or film study or Black History Month or something like that. It's like all good stuff that is worth anybody to see. It's good for you. It's not too, because I don't care for like those Black trauma type of movies that we just get bombarded with like like the movie Antebellum or Get Out, like getting sick of those. It's like, it's like those kind of movies is kind of like been ran to the mud at this point, or even 12 Years a Slave is like, it's been ran to the mud at this point. We are filled with it. What we need, if you want to have those kind of discussions, movies like this, you can have that without like the Black trauma sting to it, where you can have a very classy type of film where it's not too heated, but it's to the boiling, and I would say boiling point, but to the heat that is necessary to have that kind of discussion. I think this is like a good in between from where like you can get your point across without dealing with Black, because Black people don't want to sit there and watch Black trauma movies. It's very irritating. It's a nice between like watching a period piece with Malcolm X to something like Get Out. This is like a good in between. So Let me know in the comments below what you think of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor, check it out. Get this video to at least 100 likes, hopefully 1,000 likes, if you're so inclined. And yeah, I will see you guys in a little bit for another movie. And later on tonight, I'll have 2 more comic book movie reviews up for you guys, so look forward to that. So yeah, I'll see you guys in a bit. Peace.